Good morning, judges, or whoever is watching right now. My name is Ryuu from Citahati West, and today I'll be explaining about my CYS project called Design and Implementation of Virus Outbreaker Simulation Game using the Expression Concept. Now I will explain my introduction for this paper or project. We all know that the world is being put to rest because of this pandemic session right now. People are using their gadgets for communication and work, such as their phones or laptops. Well, teens my age use their phones for gaming, things like that, for entertainment, and their laptops or PC for working, studying, things like that. Well, our school asked us to learn something new in this quarantine session. Therefore, my curiosity against the expression concept drove me to a new digital world. Well, I found out that the Industrial Revolution 4.0 is using artificial intelligence. One of its characteristics is using artificial intelligence for helping solving human problems. There are lots of subdivisions for artificial intelligence. However, the expression concept is well known, especially the knowledge-based expression concept. Well, this concept will be used in making a simulation/game that will continue by itself. And also, I decided that the new coronavirus, the COVID-19, it will fit well into this game since we have to study about this virus more. We need to educate other people more. And hopefully that this game will bring entertainment and education to the people working at home right now, such as students or anyone else. There are a few terms I need to explain now to avoid confusion. First up is the expert system. What is an expert system? Well, it's a program that is designed and made to solve complex problems without the instructions of a programmer, just like in the case of conventional or traditional programming. It goes on by itself. Next up, a forward chaining process or technique. What is it? Well, it's basically gathering up facts from the user and then deducing a conclusion from it. And there are actually two types of chainings, forward and backward, but for our game or simulation, we'll be using the forward chaining method. Why is this? Well, it's because the backward chaining technique is a technique which has a goal, and the inference engine tries to find evidence from the facts that the user provided to prove that goal. Well, in this case, forward chaining would be much more simpler. Why? Because it's a one-way direction, but for backward chaining, it would be returning to spot 1 because evidence 1 does not prove the goal, then returning to spot 2 if the other evidence did not prove the goal. Things like that. Now for the research methodology part. I will now show the timeline for my research. First up, I go to social media or the internet to read about news and articles about COVID-19, things like that. Then I identify a problem. After that, I read about expert system, forward chaining, propositional logic, things like that to help me making the program, basically my literature review. After that, I start making the scenario for the game, the facts for the game, the rules for the game, conclusions for the game, conclusions for the rule, and finally the program. After all of that's done, we go now to the expected result. Well, we should all now know that I'm going to be using the expression concept for making this game. But the expression concept needs a technique for the working memory. And the technique I use is propositional logic technique, which is basically the if-then clause. Now I'll be explaining about the basic foundation of the game, basically the scenario, rules, facts, UI, and program. First up, the scenario. It's basically how the game goes. Basically, things like the user starts and needs to pick a country, the user gets money, resources, the country the user picked has infected, and then the user can do what he or she wants, like making factories, making hospitals, hiring doctors, start research, try to get money by opening ports and airports and allowing export, things like that. Next step 2, making the facts. There are facts such as stamina, fitness, sanitary, and intelligence level. There are also research and fun level, number of doctor, nurses, for hospitals, rapid tests, and allowing or disallowing airports and ports, allowing or disallowing import or export, and also depth. The definitions for each of these are pretty much self-explanatory except for the first 6 rules: stamina, sanitary, fitness, and intelligence. These are the four facts that needed to be manually changed by the user. They will add points to each of these facts, and these will later on affect the progression of the game. For the research and fun level, the fun level is basically the amount of money, the amount of income the user gets on one day. The research level is basically the amount of progress that the cure is being developed. The rest are self-explanatory: number of doctors, nurses, hospital, the number of those things you have at the time, allowing, disallowing imports or export, allowing or disallowing imports or export, and you get the point. Next up, the step 3, the rules. Well, we have this for now, but for a better one, for a specified one, you can go check result analysis. It's much more organized and specified. Next up, the UI, user interface. Well, the concept for the user interface, it's basically going to be a dark theme, giving out dark atmosphere because a pandemic is happening. So background will be much red or black, things like that. Something that represents blood. You know the point, right? You know what I mean. And the text like the settings button, the title, they would be either dark or light. Next up, the program. Well, as you can see here, right beside me, this is the forward chaining algorithm. First up, to start a game. User press start, they pick a country, they add manually the first 4 facts before: sanitary, intelligence, stamina, and fitness. User starts a game. Game progresses. User do what they want. Anything they do will affect the game, obviously. If the amount of that rate achieves to 100%, a pop-up message will appear, and it will say, "You failed, try again," with the button play again and main menu. If the amount of infected drops down to 0% or 0, then a pop-up message with the words "Congratulations, you won," and buttons play again and main menu will appear. And then that's the end. Next up, the result and analysis. The result and analysis is basically the rules and the conclusions I have made. I have 36 rules and at least twice the amount for the conclusion. Well, I'm not going to mention every single one, but you can pause to see. I'm just going to explain. What is a conclusion? A conclusion is basically what happens when a rule is executed. Also, I'll be now explaining about the language I'll be using. The language I'll be using is Visual Basic. Why? Because like its name, it's basic. It's much more simpler to read than other languages. And the software I'll be using is Visual Studio 2019. It's because it's designed to make apps and websites, mobile apps, things like that. Also, the Visual Studio 2019 has useful features such as designing a user interface like what I've shown you before. Yes, things like that. It also has one of the best intelligence according to lots of people. It's basically code editing, things like that. It has code completion, parameter info, etc. The conclusion. Well, the conclusion is basically the knowledge-based expert system is very useful in helping the researcher program a game. And there are also lots of things for people to explore when playing this game, such as which country has the most infected, and how do you survive during this pandemic, how do you need to be more fit, more sanitarial, more intelligent, things like that. For your work. In the future, it will be possible to develop a database and a health expert to add rules by itself dynamically. In this case, the database stores the rules and the facts, while the health expert adds rules or change certain rules. Yeah, like that, in order for the game to be more fun and more realistic. You can see my reference now. And for the quote by Falguni Desai, AI is about replacing human decision making with more sophisticated technologies. Thank you for listening to my presentation. God bless you.